Dear confreres, Franciscan associates, friends, and well-wishers of our congregation. Today is 24th October. Let me wish all of you at the very outset Happy Foundation Day of the Missionaries of St. Francis de Sales. It was on this day that Bishop Joseph Ray, the Bishop of Annecy, signed the ecclesiastical decree of approval of the congregation. Earlier, on 29 September 1838, the King of Sardinia, under whose authority was Annecy, had given the civil approval. The initial community consisted of 8 confreres, 7 priests, and 1 brother. Imagine the joy of this group that waited for long for the approval of life, which they had already started living for several years, when the then Bishop Theolo granted permission to the group to start living as a group of missioners in one wing of the building of the Major Seminary of Annecy. Our congregation was not a miracle of the moment that took place on 24th October 1838. Nor was our charism a gift of God given to Father Mermet in one single moment of inspiration. His history begins in fact in seminal form in the childhood of Father Mermet, and which gradually was shaped through the ministry of Father Mermet as a young priest, with the assistance of wise priest friends and very supporting and encouraging bishops. Today, I wish to offer you reflections on the foundation of the missionaries of St. Francis de Sales and his charism. Based on the chronology of events in the life of Father Mermet, I want to single out the following 7 milestones that shaped his vision for the congregation. The first experience, the childhood experience of his mother, Madame Antoinette Bastien. Father Mermet was born on 28th August 1790, a troubled time in Savoy after the French Revolution and the reign of Napoleon Bonaparte. It was a time when anti-clericalism was on the rise and priests and religious had to go underground or flee to other countries. The people left uncared for several years by their pastors were ignorant of their Christian faith and indifferent to it. The mother of Father Mermet, brought up in the school of the Visitation, suffused with the spirit and spirituality of St. Francis de Sales, reached out to the underground priests by providing to them clandestinely the house barn to celebrate the Eucharist. Besides, on her own initiative, she would gather the children and teach them catechism as a way of carrying on the mission of the pastors to the uncared flock. But the Mermet was a child, and as a child watched carefully the social and religious situation in Savoy. Besides, he secretly admired the courage, confidence, and service that his mother rendered to the people in that situation. The seed of vocation was already sown. When he grew up and looked for ways to revive the faith of the people in his parishes, we can safely conclude the inspiration of his mother must have surely influenced him to commit himself to the preaching of parish missions. Father Murmay regretted that he did not speak sufficiently of his mother. He says, "I regret for not having written anything of my mother. My God, how much I owe her. No, she was not an ordinary woman. She had shown him extraordinary and creative means to do something for the renewal of the faith of the children." The second experience is the Magellan experience from 1813 to 1816. In 1813, the young Murmay, as a priest, had his first appointment as the assistant pastor at Magla. Here he obtained a valuable and spiritual guide, Father Deschamps, the parish priest of Magla. Even after he retired, Murmay could seek his valuable advice. Till he was alive, and not for many years after 1813, Murmay confided to him his fears as well as his plans. In his first appointment, Father Murmay learned the value of a spiritual guide. He learned how to temper zeal, and he learned to have a personal rule of life and discipline. The third experience is the Mela experience from 1816 to 1819. From 1816 to 1819, Father Murmay is appointed professor in charge of discipline at the School of Mela. Here he gets the opportunity to put into practice the Salesian spirituality and see its effectiveness in dealing with the young. As the biographers indicate, he was gentle and firm. The pupils loved him and feared him. He was a mother as well as a father to the young ones. He realized that the heart of education is the education of the heart. But deep within him, there was an urge to be a religious and a missioner, to attend to the indifference to faith by the people. He consults his elderly guide, Father Deschamps, about his possibility to be a Jesuit. Father Deschamps cautions him and asks him to test the inspiration and get clarity before he makes his decision. The fourth experience is the Shatala experience, 1819 to 1822. Appointed as parish priest of Shatala parish, Father Murmay finds the people in a most pathetic state of indifference and ignorance of faith, although sufficiently wealthy. Father Murmay had heard about the missioner priests who conducted missions to revive the parishes. The most famous one in that area of Savoy was Father Joseph Marie Favre. Favre was a zealous priest, highly intelligent and creative, but he was impulsive and strong-headed. Father Murmay invites him to preach missions to Shatala. The response of the people in the first 8 to 9 days was very tepid, with a few people attending it. Father Murmay suggests to Favre to give up the mission. Father Favre does not agree. He suggests that the two of them go and pray La Château monastery, not very far from Shatala. The people who came to the church found their priest missing. They were told that they had gone to pray for them. They went in search of them and brought them back to the church. Struck by this rare gesture, the people came in large numbers and the mission was very successful. The Shatala experience will always remain a turning point in the life of Father Murmay, and for 3 reasons. First, he obtained a very good friend and guide in Father Favre. Second, conviction that parish mission preaching was the way of fighting indifference and tepidity of faith of the people. And the third, the power of prayer as the key to the success of the missions. The fifth experience, the seminary experience, 1822 to 1823. In 1822, the Diocese of Annecy was erected from the Diocese of Chambéry, and Bishop Thiolo was appointed as the Bishop of Annecy. Father Mermier belonged to the new Diocese of Annecy, where he is asked to be the spiritual director of the major seminarians. Sharing his desire and conviction about mission preaching, Bishop Thiolo grants Father Mermier permission to go on preaching parish missions and form a group of missioners and have their base in the seminary. The idea to amalgamate the various groups of missioners and found a religious congregation was very appealing to Father Mermier, but he felt that he was not the man to found it. He expected Father Favre to do so. Besides, in the course of his preaching missions, he becomes apprehensive and wonders if he will be effective enough to touch people's hearts. He feels this way after a few missions which were not successful. He even feels it would be better that he joins the Jesuits or the Capuchins. But Father Favre instills in Father Mermier confidence and courage not to be distracted by his fears and new proposals, but to go ahead firmly and resolutely in trying to found a congregation for missions in the spirit of St. Francis de Sales. His own personal doubts and fears vanish, and Father Mermier with his band of missioners continues the life for preaching missions, returning to the seminary for rest, evaluation of the work, planning for the next missions, and strengthening their common life through prayer, common meals, and recreation. Meanwhile, Bishop Thiolo dies in 1832, and the new bishop, Bishop Joseph Ray, is transferred to Annecy as his bishop from Diocese of Pignerol, a place where there were already groups of missioners whom Bishop Ray encouraged. When he discovers that in his diocese there is a group of missioners, he is very happy and wants to encourage them. When Father Mermier asks Bishop Ray to grant approval to their group of missioners as a religious congregation, Bishop Ray urges them to continue to live as a community for some more time so that he could watch and study the group before giving approval. This message is not happily taken by the first group of missioners who were with Father Mermier: Abbe Ala, Rocher, Jean-Baptiste Rabelot, Jacques Martin, Philippe Gaidon, and Ducrot. Most leave, except Jacques Martin, Ducrot, and Philippe Gaidon. Jacques Martin and Ducrot waver. Father Mermier turns to the one who was more firm, Philippe Gaidon, and says, "My friend, you are free. Make up your mind which side you have to take. If you leave me after 10 years of trial, I shall be alone. My resolve is unshakable. My longings the same. I want mission work." We are told that these words drove away the fears of Martin and Ducrot, and they strengthened their resolve to pursue the project of forming themselves into a religious congregation committed to missions. This crisis is indeed very revealing, not only because of the clear and unambiguous mind and heart of Father Mermier as to what he wanted. He wanted a religious congregation committed to parish mission preaching. The two were inseparable components of his vision, a vision that he wished to soak into the spirituality and spirit of St. Francis de Sales. After this crisis of 1832, while they were still staying at the seminary, Father Mermier welcomes new priests, and the total number of missioners are again 6. Mermier, Jacques Martin, Ducrot, Monsignor Cheminal, Monsignor Petitjean, Gaidon, and later when they shift their residence to La Roche-sur-la-Foron, Father Joseph Lavorel joins them. And when the mother house Lafayette is built, Brother Pierre Carton also forms the first religious community of the congregation. Then there were 8, 7 priests, including Father Mermier and 1 brother. As we reflect on the foundation of our congregation today, it is important for us to know that this community more closely along with their names and the type of life that they lived. Indeed, it is a source of tremendous joy and motivation to focus on the life of this first group as they moved from the seminary to La Roche-sur-la-Foron and then to the congregation's own mother house, Lafayette. The 6th experience, La Roche-sur-la-Foron experience. As the number of band of missioners of Father Mermier increased, Father Mermier and the bishop were forced to look out for another house. After initial search, they settled for a rented house not very far from the presbytery of the parish of La Roche-sur-la-Foron. What does it mean to live as MSFS? May our short reflection on the community at La Roche instill in us freshness, joy and zeal of what it means to be an MSFS. The house, although a rented place, was a home for the community where peace, fraternity, cordiality and spiritual ambience reigned. Here the missioners returned to rest before preaching missions and after missions. There were times of prayer which all attended with great devotion. They studied personally and collectively and prepared and planned the next mission preaching. They evaluated their performance and fraternally corrected each other to be more effective. They spent time in recreation and innocent laughter and playing some indoor games. To be focused on these objectives, they did not undertake pastoral work after their return to the community until they set out to a new mission preaching. They were focused on the plan that God was unfolding to them, and any other distraction, however good, that would take them away from community life or from the type of work God wished to entrust to them, they resisted. There is much for us to learn from the first living of the first community of our charism. It is more pleasing to God that we do the good which is entrusted to us in obedience rather than doing good which we would like to do. Would Father Mermier be happy to see us the way we are? A constant return to Father Mermier, especially living common life at La Roche-sur-la-Foron, will definitely demand a big change in our community lifestyle. The superior of this first community, Father Mermier, is described as strict with oneself but accommodating towards others. He put everyone at ease, although he appeared stern. He was cheerful. Father Mermier presents himself as a good model for superiors to imitate. Now the 7th experience, is at Lafayette experience. Let us have an insight into the first house of our first community as his own house in Annecy. Bishop Ray inaugurated the new house of the community on 27th August 1837. The first community of MSFS moved to Lafayette from La Roche. Being a big house with 3 stories of 11 rooms each, built under the supervision of Father Jacques Martin, it was meant to be initially the house for the missioners for rest, study and planning and prayer, a novitiate and a scholasticate. Although historically we were divested of this house, Lafayette is the historical source of inspiration for every community of MSFS. We are told that joy, peace, serenity, and mutual brotherly affection reign in this house. As soon as the chapel of the house was ready, Father Mermier dedicated an altar to Alphonsus Liguri, his mentor in morals and pastoral outlook for his times, to confront rigidity of Calvinism which had infiltrated into the Catholic community. Another altar was dedicated to Mother of Sorrows, where Father Mermier would spend time in prayer every day. Lafayette would be the harbinger of the good news. The missioners will no longer be a band of missioners, but a congregation of the missionaries of St. Francis de Sales. If Father Mermier is the charismatic founder of the congregation, Bishop Joseph Ray is indeed the ecclesiastical patron, guide and founder. He held the congregation close to his heart, believed in its present and its future as God's means of salvation and renewal of people. No doubt, he decided that he would like to be buried at Lafayette, and so it was done according to his wish. These significant words of Bishop Ray will always echo in the heart of the MSFS. Study St. Francis de Sales, imitate his virtues, and form your method of direction on his, filled with kindness towards poor sinners. Dear brothers and sisters and friends, here in this reflection on the foundation of our congregation, we have not only its history, but also the clear articulation of our foundational charism. That is, to live in a religious community, to be missionaries of Jesus, and to live the spirit and spirituality of St. Francis de Sales. To do all this with zeal for the glory of God and salvation of people. 24th October is a nostalgic moment of our identity, charism, and mission as missionaries of St. Francis de Sales. To return to these foundational, grace-filled processes and graced moments is indeed the will of God for the renewal of every MSFS. You cannot remain the same when you make this journey to the heart of Father Mermier and to the 7 experiences of Father Mermier, out of which our congregation was born. God bless the religious family of the missionaries of St. Francis de Sales. Live Jesus.